is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? You're all set correctly to USAPrepares.com. And we're broadcasting on AM, FM, internet, podcasts, smartphones, and satellite radio. 2 hours right here. Genesis Communications Network. There's a link to your instructors at USAPrepares.com. USAPrepares.com. Converging threats are confronted daily by your instructors. I'm Vincent Finelli. Dave is producing the broadcast, the worldwide broadcast in Minnesota. Today, survival economics. Frank Underhill. Hey, there's a meetup tonight. Ziggy's. Eddie Allen, USAPrepares.com instructors, going to be talking about bartering with gold and silver and copper. And he's going to give us an update on the Lakota Nation, the Lakota Free Bank. And I'm going to talk a little bit about preparedness and lighting, LED lighting. I'm doing an experiment here at the farm about how to battery power with 12 volts lighting for the entire farmhouse. Looks like it's going to cost me between $150 and $200 to light up the whole house. Should not have to ever replace any of the lights for generations. Should last 50,000 hours if I do it right. Information is going to be about the meetups on the website, and I'll post some pictures about what I did and how it worked as the weeks go by. With us today is Frank Underhill. Welcome, Frank Underhill.
Good morning, Vincent. Glad to be here. Thank you. Good for having me. Thanks.
Hey, Frank. I got some articles on the website, and if you're interested in finding out how to contact us or listen to us on satellite radio, Galaxy 19, transponder 5, from 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock hours on Galaxy 19, just go to USAPrepares.com. The post is on page 1, how to do it. Frank, all cell phones in the United States of America are recorded and accessible to the government, according to the FBI. They have this vast, intrusive surveillance network that listens to and records all of our conversations. Unbelievable. What do you think? You happy with that?
Well, after 9/11 and FISA and only wiretapping foreign incoming calls, foreign outgoing calls, and now domestic calls all the way, the technology is definitely there to catalog each and every cell phone call in America, and again, it shows that either your freedom of speech is out the window. It shows you that Big Brother is out there, and anything you say can and will be used against you. And not only that, text messaging is also another factor. Email is evidence mail. In my industry, everything is kept track of all incoming and outgoing emails, whether it's spam, junk, low importance, high importance, normal. It's all there. It's very disturbing.
Frank, that's a really good point. Email is evidence mail. Do you have any stories about that you can share with us?
Well, I know when I get my exams, they want random discs that are kept, and I have to provide them. They usually look for whatever. I don't know what they look for, but thank goodness I haven't had a incident. But I know that, and of course I don't engage in any any kind of business that would require a warrant, but just by chance or an event, you have to have everything. And even people like yourself for this broadcast, I'm sure everything is taped and recorded and going to some intel hub somewhere. They do this in Saudi Arabia. They do this in all the Emirate countries, Europe. It's done everywhere, and it's a very sad. And yet you can start to see why people quote want to live off the grid. It really, you see it. I can't blame those people. If I could do it myself, I would too.
Well, it's interesting, Frank. I'm talking to more and more of our USAPrepares.com instructors. And a lot of us are out in the front, and we're trying to educate people, and we're trying to train people, and we're trying to share information. It's something simple as doing a whole house lighting installation, where I'm using these. I bought over 330 feet of strip lighting, all 12 volts. And I went to the lumber store over the weekend, and I bought lumber. And I'm going to take some pictures of this, but here's the point. I'll post it on the website. But here's the point. A lot of us are starting to teach less and do more for ourselves. And I've been calling our instructors, and they've been calling me, and they have noticed this phenomenon, and they're talking to me about it, and they're saying, "Hey, Vinny, I'm doing more for me. I'm doing more for my family. I'm doing less sharing because people just aren't paying attention. So it's time to just put on the back burner helping others and just take care of our own families." And that's because the level of concern is getting higher and higher about all the bad things that can happen to us. Frank, are you seeing more people that in your circles concerned about themselves and not worrying as much about other people, or is it just the group that I'm talking with?
No, without a doubt, Vincent. And I have to say that even in my men's Bible study class, there's a lot of that going around. Like the people who host our meetings, they would take any family in that needed help or refuge, or no question. And I just want to say to your listeners, whether you're middle class or upper middle or even very well off, there are people who take these kind of tasks on because no one wants to see the community, people they know, fall flat on their face, and God forbid the worst. But there is a lot. It's just over. I think the word is overwhelming, and there are people who are starting to pull in, and I help where I can as well too. Like I bring coffee and donuts, and there's kids there, and I don't know if that's their only breakfast they're going to have in the day. But that being said, there's a lot of drawing back. But the important thing is try to make people feel comfortable. And can I just go elaborate further on the amendment, right to bear arms? Well, when the founders of the Constitution, framers of the Constitution, put that amendment in, it was to protect us from 10,000 British soldiers over the north, and to keep the community whole. But right now, and Vincent, jump in anytime. I'm seeing this as a means for people to protect themselves and not the community. I notice that more families are loading up on guns down here. I didn't a few months ago, but now people talk about it now. That's why I'm bringing it to the attention.
Well, you're right.
I'm in a lagger community, Vincent. You're in a leading community.
Well, I don't know if as I look around, there's not many people where I live. I live in a town of 100 people. My nearest neighbor, I had one that was pretty close to me. She was about 3/4 of a mile away. She moved. So now my nearest neighbor is well over a mile away, maybe a mile and a half, mile and a quarter. Great neighbors. I mean, you can't ask for better neighbors. We only see each other when we need to, but if they hear something, they're running over here, and if we hear something, we're running over there, dropping everything. So that's the kind of neighbors you want. Neighbors that are there when you need them, and not there when you don't need them. So, we're all doing our own thing. But what I'm seeing, and I went to the Chinese factory outlet this weekend. I went shopping for the first time in a long time. I made it a point to look at the rifle section and the ammunition section. No ammo that I would want to buy. They had not a single cartridge, not even a box of 20 of anything that I would want to buy. Nothing that would fit anything that I had. They had some specialty ammo, high price stuff that nobody would want. But in terms of 22s and 30 carbine, 223s, 556s, 40 caliber, 9mm, 380, 357, 38, 45s, 44s, 3030s, 308, 30-06. Nothing there. They had nothing there in those calibers. So people are buying, they are scrambling. And so I went on the internet. And this is since you mentioned ammunition. I went on the internet to look and see what's available. And I just typed in 22 long rifle, did a search, buy now, lowest prices, save 75%. But when you go to the website, out of stock, 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 out of stock. It's not available. It really is not available. And we have people calling us on a daily basis, asking us when we're going to have our next concealed carry class in Springfield, Missouri, to teach for concealed carry. And even though the government of the state of Missouri has turned over confidential records to Social Security, DHS, and the feds about who has concealed carry permits in Missouri, people still want them. But I think we're going to get to the point where people just are going to carry concealed and they're not going to care. I think we're getting closer and closer to the point where violence is going to erupt. And I don't know anybody who's really, where I live, who's concerned about thugs. They're concerned about our government. They really are. They're worried about the government invading their property, bashing down their doors, surrounding them with SWAT teams. That's what they're afraid of.
Well, that's what I was alluding to, was not for community, but for, personal protection. And that feeling is out there, definitely. Definitely. And I just want to say the ammo business, when I was not at this show, but the other show, I was with Corey, and Corey, he knows more about this
Hey, Frank, hold that thought. Hold that thought. Frank Underhill, UnderhillSecurities.com. I'm Vin Finelli, USAPrepares.com. We'll be back in just a couple minutes. Frank Underhill's with us. UnderhillSecurities.com. UnderhillSecurities.com. We were talking about ammunition just before we went into the break, and Frank, you're telling me about Corey. Corey is your assistant, and he came to the Get Prepared Expo. And what were you going to say about ammunition?
Well, you had a fellow there who made his own, and Corey at the time was saying, how a little bit on the steep side that person's pricing is, but he mentioned this to me a while ago. He goes, looking back today, he looks like a bargain compared to what he'd be selling it for today.
Oh, you're absolutely right. We require that all of our exhibitors, vendors, and instructors, if they're going to sell something, they have to sell it at the lowest price they would offer it to anyone at. And I make it absolutely clear that is the case. And ammunition is absolutely out of control. And let me tell you how out of control it really is, Frank. Years ago, I bought some 22 long rifles, 550 rounds in a box at the Chinese factory outlet. They were $7.97. And the last price I heard for them was $120 for that same box. And that was because the person bought them in a case of 10. So he bought 10 boxes at $120 or $1,200 for the case. They used to be $80 for the entire case. Now they're $1,200. And, I talked to some of our other instructors, and I said, well, what is your price for ammo? And I'd hear $60, $59.95 for that same box, which sounded, a lot better than $120. But the answer was they didn't have any in stock. So it's one thing to offer a low price on something you don't have. It's another thing to be able to sell it and actually deliver it. So the problem is ammunition is really, really in short supply. So why is this? The federal government, as far as I know, does not use many 22 long rifles. And DHS and Social Security and all the other agencies are buying hollow points at a fantastic rate. As a matter of fact, some people think that the reason that we have such an ammunition shortage in this country is the government is just buying and buying and buying and buying everything in sight. And we had a guy on the radio, Jeff Olms, O-L-M-S, of MOA, LLC. That's the name of his company, and there's a link to him on the website. He trains, he's our firearms instructor. He trains the CCW classes for us here in Springfield. He's been to the expos. And we were talking about how much ammunition the governments buy, our government. And it's easily 80% or more of all the ammunition manufactured. It's purchased by the governments. So if you think about that, we outnumber them vastly. We really outnumber them. And they are buying 80% or more of all the ammunition. Now, what in the heck are they doing with all this ammunition? I mean, I know we're beating up little countries all over the world, killing people and shooting them and wounding them and maiming them. I know all that. But do they really need that much ammunition? There's none left for us. I mean, none. There is no ammunition. If you want to buy ammunition, forget it. You can't buy it because they've consumed it all. Who are these people?
Well, they're taking it off the streets. And I just want to, on a business point, the COMEX of the New York Mercantile Exchange is raising margin rates on copper now. They did it on silver. They did it on gold. They're going to do it back on silver, back on gold, and now they're doing it on copper. Could this be because copper jacketing for ammunition, make it even that much more expensive?
Well, that's probably part of it because, yeah, we do. Copper is used in brass, in the manufacture of brass. So, yeah, as a matter of fact, tonight at the meetup and this afternoon on the broadcast, the 3 o'clock broadcast, Eddie Allen is going to be with us. And Eddie Allen is a senior player in American Open Currency Standard. It is a mint, and they mint tokens, medallions in copper, silver, and gold. And he's going to be teaching a class on bartering with copper, silver, and gold, and it's going to be a great class. And it's going to be, on the air at 3 o'clock as well as at the meetup tonight. But I wonder if part of this is because we are starting to barter more in copper. I'm Vin Finelli. This is USAPrepares.com. Frank Underhill's with us. We're going to talk more about bartering and copper when we get back. I was just thinking about Lee Wickenhauser of Genesis Communications Network. He said, Vinny, what you need is a camera, and we can stream live video of you broadcasting. And I was thinking just a few minutes ago, as I was getting ready to come back from the commercials, you don't want to see me. It's controlled chaos over here in the studio. And Frank Underhill's with us. We're talking about copper, and we're talking about the COMEX raising the margin requirements. Frank, people are starting to barter in copper. And I happen to have in the studio, and I had it here before you even said it. It's been here for months. I keep some of my valued possessions in the studio with me. I have some signed and autographed books from some of our instructors in here with me. And Mike Ma, one of our senior tactical instructors, gave me a copper token, and I keep it here in the studio with me to remind me of Mike Ma. I keep it right on the studio desk. And Mike is a very, very dear friend, and he gives these copper tokens to people as gifts. And so we're starting to trade in copper. Now, these are not valued in cents. They're not pennies. They're about somewhere between the size of a $50 and a quarter. Some of them are larger than that. Some of them weigh 1 ounce, but this one's a quarter of an ounce. And he gives them out as gifts wherever he goes. And he buys them. He doesn't get them for free. It's just a way of him being nice to people. And so I think what's happening is copper is going to be used more and more as a medium for barter. Does that make sense to you?
Well, certainly one of the lesser expensive metals out there, and there is an intrinsic value to it. So, no, I'm not surprised. It's already used in pennies, and why not have it used in other minted fashion?
Yeah, well, it used to be used in pennies. Well, it's actually the copper. It's like a copper wash on the newer pennies since 1983. And, as a matter of fact, Frank, there's a story that we posted on the website. A dog swallowed a newer penny, which is made of zinc, and killed the dog because the zinc is toxic when it mixes with the stomach acids of animals. So, copper is just a light coating of copper on the current issue of pennies, 1983 and newer. I want to talk about inflation, Frank. I have seen inflation that I am just absolutely shocked. And one of the benefits of living on the farm is I really don't get out very much. I don't go shopping very much. So I don't see slight, increases. When I see them, I see big increases because I've been absent from the market for a while. Well, I decided that I went to a seminar that Dr. Shealy had. He and I broadcasted live from the Doubletree Hotel last Thursday in Springfield, Missouri, and he presented a seminar on a product called Kyani. Kyani is the brand name, and one of the products has a lot of blueberries in it. And I decided I was going to buy some blueberry bushes for health reasons, and so that the entire family can eat blueberries. Well, I went to several places to buy them over the weekend. And we have blueberries here, but I wanted to have a blueberry garden, if you will. Went to Lowe's, and blueberry bushes were $11 for a very small blueberry bush there. And they weren't very good. Went to another store, $11. Went to the Chinese factory outlet. They were $11 or $10. And ultimately, I bought them at a place called Sutherland's. And they had 50% off sale, and their blueberries look great. So we bought just 6 bushes for $5.50. But here's the point I'm trying to make. When did blueberries get to be $11 per plant? That seems like a lot of money to me. $11 for a blueberry bush. And I'm talking about a tiny bush that might be at the most a foot tall. At the most. So I'm seeing inflation like I've never seen before. Out of control inflation. Now, if you wanted a nice blueberry bush, you could have gotten one at Lowe's, but it was $21. That's crazy. And fruit trees, I wanted to buy, we have an orchard. We have some pears and Asian pears and apples and dwarf apples, and we have all kinds of fruit trees, peaches, including chestnut trees in our orchard that we're planting and nurturing. And I wanted to add a couple more apple trees to replace the ones that died. Apple trees are $35 a piece now. How did apple trees get to be $35 a piece? I'm seeing inflation like I just can't believe. Are you seeing this kind of inflation where you live, or is it just in the 100 miles circle that I travel?
I think it's usually geographical, and Vincent, I'm not in agriculture per se, but I think that when you look at the flooding you're having there, and weather, and I think probably has a lot to do with it. And actually, a barometer that I look at for inflation, when I look at the agriculture stocks, if they go up, they're making money. If there's bumper crops or too much, they go down. And I think a lot of it is weather controlled more than, controlled by man. Would I not be too far off?
Well, Frank, I can't tell you. I can tell you that I'm absolutely shocked that a small tree, and I'm not talking about a big tree, I'm talking about one you can put in your car and drive home with the tree on the inside of your car, maybe 6 feet tall, maybe 6.5 feet tall, a spindly thing that the trunk of the tree is, I'm talking about saplings, little saplings, and $35 seems like a lot to me, and a blueberry bush at $21. I mean, if I were a store putting a $21 price tag on a blueberry bush, I'd be embarrassed.
Yes, I wouldn't even carry the product at $21. I wouldn't even carry it.
Yeah, and I know that things are getting expensive, and heck, if you go to have a hamburger now, even in the low cost Springfield market, hamburgers are now $11 at a restaurant. And I'm not talking about a big hamburger. I'm just talking about a hamburger. Nothing special. I'm absolutely shocked at the price of things. Well, let me tell you a little story. I was trying to decide. There are several locations that we can have our next expos, and so Kansas City's one, and we're going to have one there. And Lebanon, Missouri is another one. And I thought, might want to fill in with one in Springfield. Within a couple hour drive from the farm. Well, I went to Springfield and I asked what was entailed in renting a seminar room, a stage, sound system. Here's what these guys do. If I wanted to rent a room, a large expo hall for our Get Prepared Expo, and let's say I wanted to have a small one, about 20,000 square feet, and that would be a small one for us. That'd be about less than half the size that we're used to. They would charge me 30% tax, city tax, and all the taxes, when they put them all together, it's 30% to rent the room on top of the room cost. I can't believe it. Springfield, Missouri, is business hostile. How can they justify 30% tax? I'm talking about sales tax plus all the other taxes to rent a room. And then I wanted to serve a freeze-dry guy meal, okay, where all of our instructors get together and we introduce ourselves to the guests. Hundreds of guests that want to have dinner with us, maybe 300, maybe 400 of us want to have dinner together, and we get up to the microphone, and Eric Lancaster from Terraganics can introduce himself and say, "Hi, I'm Eric Lancaster. I'm from Terraganics. I'm the guy you heard on the radio. Frank, you could do the same thing. I could do the same thing." And we'd have like 150 of us, introduce ourselves. Well, they won't let me sell a freeze-dry guy dinner. Now they'll let me sell their dinner at $18.99 or $21.99 for whatever they're serving, but they won't let me sell a dinner for $6. Our own food prepared by us. They won't let us sell a dinner to our customers at cost or below cost. They will not let us do that. What I'm saying is, the city governments and these businesses are really starting to gouge their customers to the point where I'm saying I don't even want to participate. And that's what I did. I walked away. It's not possible for me to have an expo in Springfield, Missouri, because they will gouge our guests by gouging me. I mean, there's no way that I can eat a 30% tax and not pass it on. So I just won't pay the tax. I'll go someplace else. And in Lebanon, Missouri, there is no tax. Just the state sales tax. That's all I have to worry about. But it's not 30%.
Plus, you bring in the food inspectors, and you pay them, and more licensing and occupancy. Then the list goes on and on and on.
It's out of control. It's absolutely out of control. As a matter of fact, there's one location that said, okay, well, about the you can't just plug into the outlets we have in the floor because we're concerned about your safety. I'm thinking, really? Everybody that I know knows how to plug a cord into an outlet. Everybody I know. Oh, well, no, you can't do that. See, we have to inspect that, and you have to use our cords. And by the way, we can rent them to you. How do we get to this point? How do we get to this point where we have people plugging in cords into outlets and we have to charge them? How did we get to that point? It makes me absolutely crazy that just plugging in an outlet becomes a $50 job for somebody now, and we have to pay it. I'm not willing to do that either. I'm just not willing to do it. So doing these expos, it sounds like it's real easy, but it's a constant battle. As a matter of fact, boy, you got me on a roll here. As a matter of fact, a guy called me, one of our instructors, and said, hey, why don't you go to Tulsa? I said, are you kidding me? Tulsa, I've been there. I talked to them at Tulsa, and they said, okay, you know how the tickets work, right? And I said, yeah, we're going to have our people take the tickets. And they said, yeah, and we get $3 for every ticket. And I said, for what? And they said, well, that's what we charge. We'll charge you $3 for every ticket that your people take. So I said, wait a minute, you mean to tell me that I'm going to charge $8 for someone to come to the expo and you're going to take 3 of it? Just because? Forget it. So that's why we're not in Tulsa. We're trying to deliver the lowest cost expo on the planet, and they've got people that are reaching into our pockets. We got a post on the website about food from 30 different countries. And I was looking at some of these pictures of food. And in England, in terms of U.S. dollars, a family of 6 could feed itself for about $240 U.S. dollars in England. In the United States, it's $340. And if you look at some of these posts, or the pictures on this post, you'll see the types of food that is purchased around the world. Now, for example, I'm looking right now at England, and they've got candy, and they've got a lot of packaged foods. A few apples, tomato or so, maybe some greens. Very small percentage. I would say maybe at the most 10% of what they have would be considered fruit and vegetables and produce. The rest is packaged food. That's England. Okay? And if you go down to the United States, now England was $240 for a family of 6 for a week. Now, if you go to the United States, we've got Lay's potato chips, we've got Burger King, we've got some pizzas, some ragu, even less fruits and vegetables, even less. We've got some soft drinks in there, but almost all of the food is either from a fast food joint or packaged. And how much? $340 for a family of 6. Okay, now if you go to some other countries, let's see, this one is Poland. Poland, they spend a lot less. I don't have the number in front of me, but they eat a lot more fresh foods, carrots and broccoli and fruit. And let's see, this one, wow, this one is, boy, I can't even pronounce the country. But they look like they're eating almost everything raw or homemade, and it's about $75 a week. The bottom line is we spend way too much money on food that is processed and packaged, and we're not healthy. And if you look at the people, the girth of them, what you'll see in these pictures is, it seems to me that the more fresh food they eat, the slimmer they are. The more they eat packaged foods, the heavier they are. Just a thought, and you might want to check that out. That's on page 1 of usaprepares.com. Frank, what do you see in food prices where you are?
Well, you do definitely see them moving up a little bit. I bought some steaks the other day on sale for $4.99 a pound, which I thought was a steal, so I loaded up on those. But generally, I try to shop the flyer as much as possible, Vincent. That's my rule of thumb, and I shop between 4 or 5 different supermarkets. Here in Nevada, we're very limited to fresh produce. We just don't have a public market where people can just go and buy berries or tomatoes right off the vine. Here, you're limited to, unfortunately, the bulk food distributor suppliers who, the ones that you rally against, basically. That's the only choice you have out here. And not to mention a whole load of junk food restaurants out here, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there is a correlation between weight and fast food restaurants. I think the more we purchase at fast food restaurants, the heavier we become. I really believe that. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the people who work at fast food restaurants, if they've been there for a long time, let's say a couple of years, it shows. It shows. Frank Underhill's with us, underhillsecurities.com. When we come back, Frank, let's talk about what's happening in the American market. Let's talk about the dollar. Let's talk about housing. Let's talk about gold and silver. Frank Underhill, Vin Finelli, USAPrepares.com. We'll be right back. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? This is hour 2. USAPrepares.com. Frank Underhill's with us. Hey, Frank, I was looking at the price of gold, and right now, gold is $1469.7 an ounce. Now, at the beginning of the year, it was $1695, almost $1,700, and now it's below $1,500. I know that a number of people are very concerned about this, Frank, and I've been addressing this at the meetups. And what I found is, although that's the melt price, you can't buy it for that. You just can't. And silver, especially, the premiums on silver have gone up. The premiums on an ounce of silver are about 20%. So even though these prices appear to be market prices, you cannot buy the metal for that. What are you seeing where you are?
Well, that's absolutely true. That's just not only your sources, but even in the managed media, where it says that physical delivery is hard to come by. Dealers have to wait a duration to receive it, and what you're seeing is a bunch of paper transactions occurring. Now, I think gold has stabilized here due to the fact that the U.S. dollar seems to be drifting again. It's heading heading at 82, 81 range now, and it looks like it's cresting here. And I guess as long as the government keeps putting money into these markets, you will see the dollar decline even more so. So I think that's only going to help gold and silver in the short run.
Okay, so are you bullish?
I'm bullish. I'm bullish, trepidly bullish. I think miners probably have some cost problems to issue out. I was reading over the weekend that one of the largest miners in North America secured $3 billion in note sales, and I was wondering why would they raise so much money, and they probably need to unwind some contracts. But that's just my speculation. But I do see that at least the metal is stabilized. At least it's not below 1,400. But I still think we're not out of the woods yet. We still need to see a new level, a bottom formation happen here. But I think if gold could break above 1,500, I think that I would be a little more optimistic.
Had some fun last Monday at the meetup, and class was a meetup tonight. Eddie Allen's going to be with us. We're going to be talking about bartering gold, silver, copper tonight, 5:30 at Ziggy's in Springfield. And I'm going to be talking a little update on my LED project for lighting of the home. Last week there was some concern about the fall in the price of silver as well as gold, and I said, well, it affects everybody. Including me. So there were some people that bought silver at let's say $28, $29. And I said, tell you what, the market price right now is about $24. I'll buy, anyone who wants to sell silver right now, I'll pay the market price. I'll pay you the $24 right now for all you have. Absolute silence. I said, anybody want to sell at 24? No hands went up. Now we're talking about an entire restaurant full of people. I said, okay, all right. 25. 26. 27. Who wants to sell at 28? How about 29? How about 30? I rest my case. Nobody. And there was a room full of people there who own silver. I would say that every single person in that room is an owner of silver, every single one. And there was some concern about the price falling, but nobody, not one individual, would sell at a 20% premium. Nobody. Interesting. Absolutely interesting. And I said, well, I agree. I wouldn't sell either. And, I was just trying to make a point. I was not trying to use the down market to gain unfair advantage. I knew that nobody would be interested in selling their silver at those prices. And I just wanted to reinforce in their minds that, yep, they weren't willing to do it either. So we're all in the same boat.
A lot of people who own physical, they hold these things for long term. So they have long term. They are more of an investor as opposed to being a speculator, and that's the difference.
Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you, Frank, that my wedding band was an heirloom from generations. It was purchased many, 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 many years ago, and I've had it for over 30 years. So I have not sold one ounce of my precious metals without replacing it for something better. Okay, ounce for ounce, I can say. Now, while I've sold some of the, let's say, silver dollars that were of a lower quality, I've replaced them with higher quality. But ounce for ounce, I'm still where I was. I have not lost in terms of ounces, and I don't want to, Frank. I don't want to liquidate. And at some point I may, and it's going to be a lousy day. Because for some reason, I think I'll be kind of unhappy the day that I have to start selling precious metals to survive. Because I really don't want to. I just want to pass it on and have it stay within the Finelli family for centuries. Why not? Someday we'll look at even pennies, even the copper pennies that I've stored. We'll look at them and say, what? Grandchildren will probably say, what? Grandfather, what in the heck are those? What do you use those things for? Right? Copper pennies. What would you use those for? As a matter of fact, what could you buy today? When I was a child, you could actually buy something for a penny. You really could. You could buy gum, and they had penny candy for a penny. Now, I can't think of anything that you can buy for a penny. As a matter of fact, I'm trying to think of something you can buy for 10 pennies. Is there anything you buy for 10 pennies?
Not that I know of.
Yeah. Seriously. Okay. Well, let's talk about what's happening in housing, Frank. And let me share a short story with you. I broadcast in the afternoon at 3 o'clock on KWTO in Springfield, Missouri. And there are several people who broadcast about different specialties. We have one of the guys does a weekly show on mortgage lending. Another guy does one on chiropractic, and Dr. Shealy does his broadcast once a week on natural medicine and takes calls. Well, the guy who does the mortgage brokerage program. He takes calls and talks about what's happening in the market. I asked him, and I've been listening to him for a couple of years because he and I broadcast on the same station. And I asked him if he'd be interested in presenting a seminar at the Get Prepared Expo, at the last expo, talking about what is happening with mortgage lending. And specifically, I explained to him that we have a realtor who is expert in helping people find farm properties, kind of like my farm. They could find a 5-acre, 20-acre, 40, 60, 80, 120, 200-acre farms. And he knows where they are, and he knows, and he's been on them. He's walked them. So I asked this mortgage broker if he would do a seminar that could link how to finance one of these farms that our real estate instructor would be talking about at his booth at the expo. So if you wanted to buy a farm, you talk to the realtor, you go to his seminar, you learn about what to look for, and then you go to the mortgage guy and say, okay, so is funding available? Well, the mortgage broker told me that there's no funding available. No funding available to buy a farm. It's impossible to finance a farm. From him, through him, with him. He said, now, if you want to buy a city property, they can make that happen. Well, who wants to buy a city property? Everybody I know is trying to get out of the city. So I guess that's why there's funding. But what I'm saying is, Frank, the mortgage market is not what we think. You just can't go and get funding to buy a farm. So tell us what you see happening in housing.
Well, you can't get funding to buy a mortgage here either, and banks are not lending, and real estate is only moving up because the banks are holding back on a lot of properties. And when that happens, there's a squeeze. And in a way, I think it's better because people who are buying them are probably better qualified to buy them, and you're seeing a new normality set into place here, where you have to have skin in the game, where it's very hard to get refinancing, and I think without sounding like the Grinch, I think this is probably the way it should be, and this is where real estate prices should be. And, like here, there are still people still going through the short sale regime or the procedure, or there are people who are simply still losing their homes to the banks because a lot of these short sale procedures all have trap doors, back rooms, and snakes and ladders. So it's very difficult, and the way the banks see it, with real estate moving up and having a control on the inventory, they probably should be putting people into foreclosure because they can recover more today than, say, what they could a year or two ago. So
are you seeing, what are you seeing in housing prices? Are the prices going up?
I see them going higher, but with a lot less inventory on the market, yes.
Okay, so actually we're talking about supply and demand, right?
Right.
So it's actually working in the current market. Frank Underhill, Vin Finelli, USAPrepares.com. Talking about housing. We're talking about banks are still foreclosing. And let's talk a little bit more about tight lending standards when we come back on the other side of this break. Frank Underhill and I are talking about banking, talking about lending to purchase properties. And I mentioned that it's really, really difficult to get funding to buy a farm, but it's easier to get funding to buy a city property. Frank, it seems to me that businesses that, like Wall Street is doing very well. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is hit 15,000. Don't you need profits in order to have a company do well, or is there another way of manipulation?
Well, the other way is just fee, charge, stay out of lending. Short-term lending, what banks have managed to unlock is you can charge 25% on a $3,000 credit card, or do you charge 4%, 3% interest on a 30-year mortgage with a chance of bumps in the road or foreclosure along the way. So banks really do not need to be in the mortgage business or in the car lending business or really any other business. They just make it on short-term high interest rates, just like a payday loan store, if you will, or a title loan place. So
and I'll tell you what, Frank, they're everywhere. I mean, payday loan, title loans, bad credit, no problem. You can buy your car here. I mean, how do we get to this point where there are big signs on businesses that headline that if you can't pay your bills, we'll put you in a car? Unbelievable.
Well, you look here, companies like Drive Time, they sell late model off-lease vehicles, and they charge high interest. I'm sure there's people in your locale that are familiar with a show called Pawn Stars, where people bring in items, they pay big juice, they charge hefty fees, and hope you get your item back when you have some extra money in your pocket. Wall Street's run pretty much the same way.
You mentioned Pawn Stars. I know Craig Gottlieb from California. I've seen him at many trade shows, and he's an expert in German military items and war artifacts. I know him very well, and I've had dinner with him many times, and we've chatted. So. I am familiar with one of the players in Pawn Stars. Anyway, we were talking about banking.
That's
and
how
I
banks make their money. And, and going back to real estate, what you have now, our prices are still low, is that you have simply cash buyers jumping into the market. And a cash buyer will generally rent the home out, or they bought it so low where they can sit on it and wait. But chances are, with a cash buyer who's buying a home to live in, that house will never probably ever see the real estate market for years to come, really. Because, I could speak for myself. I'm never going to sell my home. I'm in it. I don't owe on it. And therefore, it'll never see the light of day ever again.
Yeah, and you're talking about me also. We bought our farm, paid for it, and no notes on it, no loans. And I was talking to Mrs. Finelli about it, and our intent is to have this be the family farm for a very long time. We're taking care of the land, we're restoring the land, and we're not abusing it. And it's not a speculation property. It's the family farm. And that's the way it used to be. Well, in Europe, heck, families stayed on the same farm for centuries. Yep. So why should we not do that here?
And your kids have a place to come to. If whatever hits the fan, there's always a home to roost.
Yeah. Frank, you mentioned credit cards. We depend on our credit cards way too much. Way too much. Yep. And I, of course, depend on my credit card, but I always have a plan B. And talk about what happened to me with United Missouri Bank and how they shut my credit card down. I'm going to tell you why. It's embarrassing, and I think United Missouri Bank needs the publicity. They need the free advertising. So I'm going to help them when we get back. Frank Underhill and I are talking about credit cards, and I wanted to mention that I depend on my credit cards just as many people do, but I also always have a plan B. And went to Ziggy's a few weeks ago and used my credit card. And here I am at Ziggy's. I've been there for a couple of years now, and I always pay I don't get free food. I won't accept free food. So I pay my dinner bill just as everybody else does. And my bill was $9, and I wanted to put a tip on there, and I'm thankful that Ziggy's will let us use their restaurant for for our meetup. So I tried to thank our waitress, who's very good to us, and I tipped her $20. And so my bill was $29. And the owner of the restaurant was the cashier that night, and he said, "Your credit card's declined." And I'm thinking, wow, how'd that happen? Well, so that's okay. I've got other cards, and I have cash. And I took care of it, but it was kind of embarrassing. And my card didn't work for buying gas that day either. And then my website, e-commerce site, gets shut down because my credit card's no good. So I called up UMB Bank, United Missouri Bank, and they told me that they had some questions for me, and they wanted to verify some information, and they wanted to add some information to my profile, and I wouldn't let them do it. I said they had a choice. They could either fix it right then, or I would talk about it. And they said they just had a few questions. I said, no, I'm not answering any questions. My phone number, you've got my phone number. It's the same phone number that's on the account. I'm calling from my home. And I gave them my website, and my name is on the website. The phone number's on the website. Everything jives. They wanted more information. I said, absolutely not. It's not going to happen. Talked to a supervisor. Got nowhere. Bottom line is, they told me, I said, why is it shut down? They said, well, there's some unusual purchases. I said, like what? They said, well, longevity. Well, that's Dr. Wallach's supplements. I buy them, just as everyone else does. A couple $100 a month. And that seemed to be a problem for them. And I said, well, if you look, you'll see that I bought them the month before. And they said, yeah, you're right. You're right. And they said, what about this Kyani? And I said, well, that's another supplement that Dr. Shealy recommends, and I buy that also. And I said, that's, if you check, there's history on that too, month after month after month. She said, that's right. I said, so what's the problem? They said, well, here's a charge from Luxembourg. I said, okay, tell me about it. She said, it's $3.05. I said, okay, what is it? She said, it's Skype. And I said, yeah, that's right, $3.05, $2.99 plus tax. That got my credit card shut down. They thought that was fraudulent. $3.05. So instead of calling me, instead of emailing me, they shut my card down. And actually they say, well, it's really not shut down. It's just not active. So it shuts down my e-commerce site. It shuts down my purchase of, when I travel, gas and food and so forth. And what I'm saying is, you are vulnerable. If you think that one credit card in your wallet is always going to work, it doesn't. This card has been shut down at least 4 times that I remember distinctively. The same credit card. And I was instrumental in getting Casey's General Store to dump Juniper Bank, because Juniper Bank shut my credit card down 3 times. So I'm on first name basis with the chief financial officer of Casey's, and we talk about customer experiences, and I called him and I explained to him that I didn't understand why my credit card was shut down for $3.05. And of course, Casey's is a very large customer of UMB, United Missouri Bank, and you know what? My credit card was fixed without me answering any more questions. But it took a high level to do it. So the bottom line is, don't depend on your credit card. And if you're thinking about getting one from UMB, I told you that they shut my credit card down for $3.05. They were not willing to risk a $3.05 charge for a good customer, a loyal customer of 8 years, for $3.05. Frank, back to you.
I think they look for any excuse. They probably even just want to drop customers, really, I think. And
well, they would probably love to drop me, because I told them I would talk about them for 5 days, and I'm on day number 4. So, this is the 4th time I mentioned United Missouri Bank. And I think they're a miserable bank. Absolutely miserable. The only thing they are authorized to do is to apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Can you fix it? I'm sorry. But can you fix it? I'm sorry.
Well, this is why I don't even like going into a bank. I don't even like asking them for anything, because it's all excuses and no solutions. And I don't like being hit for sale. They'll want to sell me something. Now, unlike Vincent, I don't have any credit cards. I don't believe in them. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. And, once you're late, you're into a system, and that's one grid I try to get off of, is that credit card grid, that credit reporting and credit this and that. It's all nonsense.
Yeah, a funny story, Frank. I went into Sam's Club many years ago, and they had a deal where if you upgraded your credit card to the new Sam's Club credit card, and this was back in the 90s, you could get 2% off your back, 2% back. Well, I needed to buy a whole bunch of appliances. I needed a couple washing machines, a couple dryers, refrigerator, a whole bunch of stuff. And so I thought, well, if I'm going to do it, now's the time to do it. So I went to the courtesy desk, and I said, I'd like to get that card. And they explained to me, it's real. You get 2%. I said, okay, I'll do that. And they said, just fill this out. And they asked me all kinds of questions. And I didn't want to put down a lot of this information. So what I did was I just said, my name. And it asked me for my income. And I think I put down $11,000. I said, $11,000 annual income. And so she looked at it, and she's looking at my cart of stuff, and she's and I wrote down an income below the poverty line, right? I mean, way below. I mean, I'm ready for food stamps. I'm ready for I'm ready to figure out how I'm going to get home. So I said, I've got something I got to do. I'll be back in a couple hours. And she said, that'll give us plenty of time. So I came back, and I said, did you, were you able to process my cash? She said, yeah, I did. And I checked it 3 times, and it came back all 3 times. Yeah, you're approved. And I said, do you know what my credit line is? And she said, yeah, it's $17,000. And I said, wow, that's pretty good, isn't it? I mean, for $11,000 a year income, I have a $17,000 credit line on my credit card. And she said, yeah, it's kind of amazing, isn't it? What I'm telling you, Frank, is regardless of what you put down, they know. They know. They know what the real answer is. They know what the real story is. So, for some reason, they overlooked what I put down as my income. And they were willing to lend me $17,000 unsecured on a credit card. So they know by your social security number and your name who you are, and that's pretty much all they need to know. Name, address, social security number. They've got it down. Your thoughts?
Yeah, again, it's Big Brother, and
it is.
Vincent, I don't want these banks to give me a single penny. Period.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they've got their hooks into you. I wanted to.
If I can just share this, I needed to get a signature medallion, and this bank lady was giving me the runaround. Like I went not once but twice, and then wait. Then I went to another branch, and the branch that I go to just down the road, if I go in there, they said, well, the person who does this is not there, but he's at this other branch down on Boulder and Indio. So I go down to this branch at Boulder and Indio, and I show up. I was in there in like 3 minutes. Guy says, you need a medallion? Yes. I told him I needed it. He said, I'll be right back. He went to the safe. He got the stamp, got his ledger book, came out, looked at the document, read over it, stamp, boom, gone. And, there's not even a consistency between branches on different services. And, you cannot function without consistency. It's good at this branch, not good at that branch. We'll get back to you here, won't get back to you there. Vincent, it really makes one wonder how we, I'm not surprised how we fell into this big financial pickle, and yet how we've made it so far. And I guess a portion is, if it wasn't for the resilience of people like yourself or me or the American people, we'd be in a lot bigger trouble than what is transpired today.
Well, there's a bank down the road from us about 20 miles away, and that's the closest bank. And, they know me by sight. They know me by my voice. And I've been asking them for all the years that we've been doing an expo to do a seminar to teach young people how to save money, how banking works, how interest works. And they say things to me like, well, I'll tell you what, we'll be glad to contribute to your expo and we'll give you some money, but we can't do that seminar thing that you're asking. And I said, I don't want your money. All I want you to do is teach young people how banking works. And they said, well, the FDIC and the rules and regulations. I said, what are we talking about? You guys used to go to you guys used to go to schools and teach people about saving money and interest. That's all I want you to do. Teach people what you guys do so they know how interest works, so that they don't become victims of zero down, no payment for a year, and then have their cars hooked and their beds and mattresses taken away from them because they can't pay their bills. They need to know how interest works. Well, no bank, not even my bank, will come to the Get Prepared Expo and teach people how interest works. No bank. I've been talking about this for a couple years on the radio. No bank will teach a seminar for 1 hour in their own market, teach children how interest works. No bank. You got to ask yourself, what's wrong with banking that they won't even talk about what they actually do? It's a secret. I'm Vin Finelli, Frank Underhill. We come back, I'll talk about banking fees. Class, if you'd like to contact Frank Underhill, you may. And I'm going to give you his direct phone number, 702-987-5449. 702-987-5449. Link on the website, usaprepares.com, page 1 under instructors at the bottom of the page. I've got a caller. Mike, hold on just 1 second. I just want to say something very quickly. I'm looking at the fee schedule for my bank, okay? And overdraft charge per item, $25. Insufficient funds per item, $25. Negative account fee, $5 per day. Inactive account fee, $4 per month. Let's see, unauthorized ACH return, $15. Deposit chargeback, $2. Cashier's check, $5. Money orders, $2.99. Counter checks, if you want 10 of them, $2.50 plus postage. Deposit books, $2. If you want a check image copy, if they have to research it, $4. Photocopies, 33 cents. Facsimile, if you want a fax sent, $5. Non-customer check cashing fee, 1% of the check amount. And it goes on and on. A notary fee, $2. A tax letter of credit, $29. Statement balancing, 1 hour minimum, $25. Stop payment, $15. Wire transfers, outgoing, $15. Incoming, $10. International outgoing, $45. The list goes on and on and on. So I called him up and I said, I got this letter. That doesn't apply to me, right? You know what they said? No. That's not for you. What I'm telling you is, you can call your bank and say exactly what I did. I'm confused. This doesn't apply to me, right? So there you have it. Mike from Tennessee, you're on with Frank Underhill and me, Vin Finelli.
Before I get to my point, I just want to mention that non-customer check cashing fee, that's actually illegal. If you look in most states, they charter these banks with the understanding that they're supposed to honor checks as cash in full, and them applying a fee because you're not a customer renders that check less than full face value.
It does.
So if you challenge it and you get your state comptroller involved, I'm surprised there hadn't been a class action lawsuit against that yet, but banks across the board are doing it, and it's totally illegal. The reason I called, I went to Walmart and got one of their variety of credit card offerings. They're supposed to have a money card where you can basically use it as a debit card, or when you travel, such as driving to the expo and you need to buy gas at places that don't take cash, then you've got the effectiveness of a credit card without having a credit card account. And they do not advertise anywhere that you're required to give a Social Security number in order to activate it. But on the website, it says if you don't have a social or you choose not to give it, click here, and it will be available to be used as a debit card, which is what I wanted to use it for, one-time use, one-time load, and that's it. Don't want a credit card with anybody. So went to activate it, and it wouldn't activate. And I was fortunate I was able to make the trip over and back, and all the gas stations took cash, but had I been to one that only took credit cards out at the pump after hours where they locked the places down, I would have been up a creek. And in talking to Walmart, they basically passed the buck to the company, and the company passed the buck to Walmart. And in the end, I was able to get a refund, but therein they wanted my Social Security number. So I think the Bible says something about in the end you will not be able to buy or sell or trade without the mark of the beast. Well, this is full face, value of that scripture right now, where you can't even get a prepaid debit. And of course, had it notated on the side of the box, you must disclose your Social Security number, or they had an option for you to return it to the store and get a refund, that would have been okay, but there was no option for a refund whatsoever through Walmart. They took the money, but they refused to do a refund.
Mike, thanks so much for that information. I think that was great, sharing that with us. Mike, you're certainly welcome to be a frequent flyer here at usaprepares.com. Frank Underhill's with us. Frank, thanks so much for being with us, talking about survival economics. Boy, it's getting tougher and tougher. Not even cash is welcome everywhere. Class, above all, honesty and integrity. What happens next is up to you. And man, oh man, we're in a lot of trouble. Everywhere you look, we got problems. Thanks so much for being with us, Frank.